Hello and welcome to The Curators, a podcast about game projects on Kickstarter. It's me, Marcelo, solo again. But don't worry, Joey fans, he's in my basement, he doesn't get a lot of sunlight, but he's well fed. Let's check it out, what we have today. Oh yeah, of course, I'm Marcelo, and you can find all the games from this episode, as well as plenty of others, at our curated page at kickstarter.com/gamerati. You can also find links to each of these projects in the show notes of this episode at thecurators.gamerati.com. If you're a backer of any of these projects, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email to thecurators@gamerati.com. Just tell us why you're backing a certain project, and we may feature your email on the podcast. So let's check out the two projects I brought for you today. The first one is from Nightfall Games, SLA Industries 2nd edition. The long-awaited 2nd edition for SLA Industries is here, featuring a new rule system, new playable races, and beautiful art. It is indeed beautiful. So, SLA Industries, it's written SLA Industries. It's an RPG by Nightfall Games. They're from Glasgow, Scotland. And it was published in 1993. The game is set in a dystopian, far-flung future in which the majority of the known universe is either owned or indirectly controlled by the SLA Industries, which it's like the end-all be-all of the universe. The game was my first contact with a genre called splatterpunk. Now, what's splatterpunk? Splatterpunk was a movement within the horror fiction. There was a lot of sci-fi, I believe. But anyhow, it was a movement, an underground movement inside the horror fiction of the 80s. It was counterculture, it was gory, it was violent. Have you ever read any of the Judge Dredd stories from 20 AD? It's like that. Judge Dredd is splatterpunk. Splatterpunk was your typical literary movement in the survivalist, the chaotic Thatcher-Reagan era. So I think it's kind of kismet that Nightfall Games is bringing SLA Industries back now for its 2nd edition. 26 years later, we get a new edition, a 2nd edition of SLA Industries. So what we get 26 years later? Well, Nightfall Games is inviting us to revisit the oppressive and rain-soaked Mort City. What better than revisit the aesthetics of the 80s right now that we miss it? Like we were happy and we didn't know it. So it's a good idea to take another look 26 years later on this dystopian future of the past, so to speak. So the book describes the world of progress, which is the universe in which SLA, I always do that, it's not SLA Industries, it's SLA Industries. So yeah, it describes the world of progress where SLA Industries operate. So you have fax machines, you have green phosphorus view screens, you have vet-grown biogenetic monstrosities, and dirty, messy, hyper-violent megalopoly urban sprawl. You know, the 1980s. One of the cool things here is that, of course, the book will be completely updated from the ground up with art and layout more in line with what we used to see in RPG books in the last, I don't know, decade and a half or so. So SLA Industries will be a full-color, hardback tome, crammed full of content. Also, it's being done by the original creative team. That's kind of unheard of. Yeah, cool idea. And what do you get as a player character in the world of progress? You play as an operative, a highly trained and well-equipped freelancer that serves as the company's agents. The better you are at your job, the better security clearance you have, making the small comforts of living worth it. You also have access to better equipment and the chance to have sponsorships and accrue notoriety, capital N, which is a mechanic of the game. That's the one thing this media-driven world craves the most, notoriety. Of course, there's space for stories of straight-up shoot-'em-up, but also conspiracies, crime mysteries, pure sci-fi, etc. Anything you want in this splatterpunk dystopia. I remember the best game I had with the original SLA Industries. We were operatives that got the shaft, so I don't remember why. But it became a game of The Fugitive, you know the series? But in the world of progress. I can't wait to see what they've done with the engine for the second edition. The Kickstarter page says they created an entirely new D10 based rule system. There is a rating points mechanic earned from FaceTime in front of the camera and throughout bravery or extreme successes or spectacular failures. And you use your rating points to fuel cinematic feats. There's also a luck mechanic, and there's you can see more about the changes and the new rules in a 11-minute video on the Kickstarter page talking about the new rule system. So the Kickstarter is for crowdfunding the 192-page hardcover book. You can download a 52-page quick start PDF to check the game out for yourself before you pledge. If you pledge £12 what's that? About 15. Let's see here. About 15 US dollars. You get the PDF and all the stretch goals. If you want only the physical book, just pledge £35. That's about 44 US dollars. And you also get all the stretch goals. And if you want the PDF, both PDF and print, it's £50. There's also two different and more expensive limited editions of the book on the higher pledges. So SLA Industries second edition is already funded way above the initial goal with more than 1,000 backers. And this is a shorter Kickstarter. Joey wouldn't have liked me to come up to use this project here because it's below our 2-week margin, 2-week left on the Kickstarter pledge. It goes up until the 8th of October. This episode will be released on the 30th, so 9 days? Yeah. So not a lot of time. So check out the link through the video description, take a look, see if it's something that you like. It's something that I like. You have a lot of time for the next project I'll talk about. It's Agon, heroic action in the mythic world. Let me change here on my screen for the people watching on YouTube. Agon, heroic action in the mythic world by Evil Hat Productions. It's a Kickstarter project that have just been released. I believe I'm recording on the Thursday. I think they released it yesterday, something like that. Anyhow, Agon the word Agon comes from the Greek that means without angle. It describes an imaginary line around the Earth passing through both the north and south magnetic poles. So at any point, your compass needle will point to true north. What does it mean for this game? I don't know. Maybe it's because you are seeking to come back home, but you keep missing the route and hitting weird islands, so you are without angle, without a true north. Let's see how the game works. This is a game based, it's a tabletop RPG based on epic stories of mythical heroes that slay monsters and outsmart adversaries, drawing the attention of the gods themselves. It's, as you can see, if you go to the Kickstarter page or if you're watching on YouTube, it's very reminiscent of Greek pottery art. And there's a segment on the Kickstarter page that says it all. Let me find here. Oh, here. On their way back home from the war, the heroes have become lost among strange islands populated by mythical creatures, dire beasts, treacherous landscapes, legendary kingdoms, and desperate people, all somehow cursed or abandoned by the cruel power of capricious gods. It falls to you to seize this opportunity for greatness, to set things right in these lost lands, overcome the trial of gods, monsters, and people, prove the glory of your name, and win your way back home. So it's just like the Odyssey. There is another segment here that says, that I find very important for the tone of the game. It says that there is no call for historical, quote, no call for historical literacy or accuracy. It's strongly discouraged, in fact. Let yourself be inspired by the enchanting stories, but make your mythic world your own. That's something that is very dear for Evil Hat Productions, and something that I like a lot about their way of working, their way of life, way of production, of producing games, making games. So there's a I didn't know that, but there's a first version of Agon that was released in 2006. This version expands and upgrades the game. It brings, let's see here, the antagonist from the first game is now the Strife player, which is kind of like the game master. And the role is designed to be easier for anyone to pick up and start playing. So there's no prep for this game because the islands are ready for you to use and throw at your player characters. So, as I said, the game comes with a lot of islands, ready-made islands with monsters, people, gods, and each of their own desires for the heroes. There's a bunch of stretch goals that add more islands. For example, it's already unlocked an island developed by Ellison Arth. They are about to unlock another island by Ben Scary. There's another island at $35,000 by Whitney M. Delaglio. So they will keep adding islands. What else if you played Agon from 2006? The conflict system now rewards heroes based on the challenge presented. Whatever difficulty the Strife player rolls on their dice will match the glory awarded to the hero who is best. Battle has been greatly streamlined and gets resolved in 3 contests. And the focus has shifted from replicating the myths of old to playing fast-paced adventures inspired by the legends. Inspired by, you should make them your own. So the players create heroes. There's no 2 words about it. And you play a classic hero, not one of our modern superheroes. So you wander from island to island, engaging in contests, appeasing the gods, seeking your way home. The Strife player, which is the game master, it's called Strife player because that's what he does. He presents the Strife, an island with a native population, a problem, the Strife, and opponents for you to overcome. Each play session will give you about 2 hours of adventures on one island. When you're finished, you might have gotten some favor from the gods, which you will make your journey home a little bit easier. So the Kickstarter lets you get a book with all the rules you need to create heroes of myth and legend. Rules for divine favors, bonds and pathos, descriptions of islands full of gods, monsters and challenges, a segment with guidance to the Strife player, a place to record the hero's progress, a simple and elegant 1-roll system to determine outcomes, and a handful of contests and battles. Let's see what we have here as rewards. So for $10, 10 US dollars, you immediately get access to the prototype PDF and can already start playing. For 15 US dollars, you also get the prototype, but you will receive the finished PDF of Agon once it's ready. The physical book is at the 25 US dollar pledge, and you can add $25 for 1 extra copy of Agon. If you want 3 copies, you just pledge 75 US dollars. Shipping remains the same, 7 US dollars, even if you get more than 1 copy. Unfortunately, the physical book is only available for residents of the United States, so I'll have to settle for the PDF then. It seems to be a beautiful book. I'm loving this art. It's very reminiscent, as I said, of Greek pottery art, of very ancient Greek art, so to speak. And I like the diversity of people writing stuff for the book, and it's already a smashing success. I'm looking at almost 30,000 pledged out of the original 10,000 goal, more than 1,000 backers, and you have until the 25th of October. I think this is a must-have for any aficionado of tabletop RPGs that are slightly different than the usual. So that's my second recommendation. Agon from Evil Head Productions. 2 RPGs today. Interesting. One more traditional, although old school, and one very, very modern. Haha. I think that's it for this episode. I tend to talk less when I'm not with Joey, but he's busy. He'll be back. Eventually. If he manages to solve the puzzle I left on his shackles. Whoa! Oh my God. Okay, that's it for another episode of the show. If you have any questions about the games we featured, or if you'd like us to consider a game on the podcast, feel free to email us at thecurators@gamerati.com and we will answer you on the podcast. You can also reach Joey or myself on Twitter and Facebook. We are at Gamerati. The show notes for this episode and all our episodes are at thecurators.gamerati.com. You can also find The Curators on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Don't forget to check our curated page on kickstarter.com/Gamerati. We're always adding new and interesting games there. And we are also on YouTube at youtube.com/Gamerati. See you again, or rather, you are going to see me again next week.